In a regular suburban house in Grantham, Virginia, the Popos have arrived to investigate an absolute nightmare. Bodies are scattered all over the house and blood is splattered across the walls. The janitor must be on vacation, but things get even worse when they find the lifeless body of a completely naked woman, half buried in the basement with zero visible injuries. The racial profilers can't identify her, and she isn't connected to anyone in the house, so the sheriff gives her the name Jane Doe. Here's where things get weird. Nothing in the house was stolen, there are no signs of a break-in, and it actually looks like the entire family was trying to escape the house before they died. Typical family argument, am I right? We then cut to a morgue where we meet veteran coroner Tommy and his son Austin performing an autopsy on a severely burned body while recording every observation. Tommy teaches Austin how to identify the real cause of death and tells him that every dead body has a secret, and some just hide it better than others. It's not that deep, bro. Once they finish, Austin is about to leave when someone suddenly scares him. Thankfully, it's just his girlfriend Emma, who came to pick him up for movie night instead of becoming tonight's second corpse. Emma immediately becomes curious about the morgue, because apparently haunted-looking buildings are tourist attractions now. Austin explains that the place has been in his family for 3 generations. She eventually reaches the room full of corpses and asks if she can see one. Austin instantly refuses because his dad is stricter than YouTube's copyright system. Right on cue, Tommy walks in and surprisingly gives permission as long as Emma is serious. Austin slides out one of the bodies, and we notice a tiny bell tied around its ankle. Tommy explains that back in the day doctors couldn't always tell if someone was truly dead or just in a coma, so they tied bells to bodies just in case. Imagine waking up inside a coffin and thinking, good thing they installed customer support. Nowadays they have modern equipment, but Tommy is an old school and still follows the tradition. After that, Austin and Emma finally head toward the elevator for their date, but just before leaving they see the sheriff arriving with another body. Austin immediately wants to help his dad, but Tommy tells him to go enjoy instead. The problem is Austin knows the sheriff wouldn't show up this late unless something serious had happened, so he apologizes to Emma and asks if they can meet again at 11 p.m. for the midnight movie. Emma is understandably annoyed. Girl got ghosted for an actual corpse. Still, she understands the situation and leaves. Meanwhile, the sheriff brings in Jane Doe. She has no identification, no fingerprints, and absolutely nothing that can tell them who she is. At that exact moment, Tommy's pet cat suddenly starts hissing at the body for absolutely no reason. You know it's bad when the cat's ultra instinct is triggered. Tommy simply shoos the cat away. The sheriff explains what happened at the house. 4 people are dead, and he can't connect any of them to this mysterious woman. His theory is just a hunch, but he believes solving Jane Doe's mystery might explain everything. He asks Tommy to determine her cause of death before morning because the press will be demanding answers. No pressure. Once the sheriff leaves, father and son begin the autopsy. Tommy starts recording and explains they'll perform it in 4 stages. First, the external examination. Then the heart and lungs. Next, the digestive system. Finally, the brain. Basically the deluxe investigation package. While preparing, the radio casually announces that the weather will stay beautiful and clear for the next few days. The timing feels oddly random. Austin begins the external examination. Jane Doe appears to be in her mid to late 20s. Her skin is perfectly intact without bruises, cuts, or any visible injuries. Then they open her eyes and discover they're completely gray. Tommy points out eyes normally only look like this after a body has been dead for several days. That's impossible because she still looks fresh. Things get even stranger when they discover that her wrists and ankles are completely fractured internally, yet there isn't a single external mark. It's like someone broke every bone without touching the skin. Next, they discover traces of peat inside her fingernails and hair. It's an organic material that's only found in northern regions, so somehow she ended up here after being exposed to something that shouldn't even exist in Virginia. When Tommy opens her mouth, both men freeze because her tongue has been brutally cut out. As if that wasn't disturbing enough, Tommy notices she's also missing a tooth. Then, while examining deeper inside her mouth, he slowly pulls out a long, mysterious thread. When Tommy examines Jane's private area, he's stunned to find multiple deliberate cuts. They then move on to the internal examination, but before they can continue, the lights suddenly begin flickering. The radio starts making a weird sound mixed with the scream of a woman before an old song called "Open Up Your Heart" and "Let Sunshine In" suddenly starts playing. I don't think that's premium Spotify subscription, guys. Tommy cuts open Jane's body, and an enormous amount of blood gushes out, which shouldn't happen. They also notice her waist is unnaturally small. Tommy explains that this happens when someone wears a corset for many years. Austin finds that impossible because corsets went out of fashion a couple hundred years ago. Tommy then cracks open her rib cage and immediately freezes. Her lungs are completely black. He explains that even if someone smoked 10 packs of cigarettes every day for 30 years, their lungs still wouldn't look this bad. It's a good thing I only smoke 5 packs. Damage like this only happens from third-degree burns. The problem is that her body doesn't have a single burn mark. Next, Tommy examines her heart and the rest of her organs. They're all cut and severely damaged. With injuries this extreme, the outside of her body should be completely mangled. Instead, she looks almost perfect. Damn girl. At this point, both father and son have officially run out of explanations. Outside, a massive thunderstorm suddenly begins and the lights flicker once again. A strange noise from outside catches Austin's attention, so he goes to investigate. At first, he doesn't see anything. Then he spots the figure of a woman standing in the distance. Before he can react, she suddenly disappears. The best thing about working in a morgue is that I don't have to work there. Back inside, Tommy accidentally cuts his hand on Jane's bones while performing the autopsy. Meanwhile, Austin hears strange noises coming from the ventilation shaft. He slowly opens the vent. Before he can see anything, Tommy walks over. When Austin checks again, he's horrified to find Tommy's pet cat trapped inside, covered in blood and badly injured. Tommy is devastated. Knowing the animal is suffering, he snaps its neck to end its misery. He then carries his beloved pet to the crematorium and quietly incinerates it before asking Austin to give him a moment alone. I lost my pet too. I understand that feeling. A little later, Tommy returns, and they begin stage 3 of the autopsy. Austin notices his father is heartbroken and tries to comfort him, but Tommy insists he's fine. While cutting into one of Jane's tissues, Tommy suddenly discovers a flower hidden inside her body. Both men are left speechless. Tommy grabs a reference book and identifies it as Jimson weed, a powerful paralytic plant. This finally explains the inflammation throughout her organs. It also only grows in northern regions, confirming that Jane came from there. The radio then interrupts again with a warning that a powerful storm is approaching. Austin suggests finishing the autopsy in the morning. Tommy refuses. He reminds Austin that the sheriff expects answers by sunrise, so they continue. Inside Jane's body, they discover another bizarre object. It's a piece of cloth. Even worse, it's wrapped around a human tooth. They inspect the cloth and realize it's an old burial shroud engraved with Roman numerals and strange symbols. Austin compares it with the thread they pulled from Jane's mouth earlier and realizes they're from the exact same fabric. He carefully places the tooth back into Jane's mouth. It fits perfectly. The horrifying realization hits immediately. Someone ripped out her teeth, wrapped them inside the cloth, and forced her to swallow them. Whoever did this seriously needed therapy. The strange symbols covering the shroud make Austin believe Jane may have been used in some kind of human sacrifice. Just then, the radio broadcasts another storm warning. This time, the announcer strangely says they're not getting out of there. Seconds later, Open Up Your Heart and Let Sunshine In starts playing again. Austin begs his father to leave. Tommy ignores him and continues the autopsy. He peels back Jane's skin. Both men freeze. The exact same disturbing symbols from the shroud are carved underneath her skin. Austin quickly switches on a flashlight. As the light sweeps across the room, both men realize every drawer that once held the dead bodies is now completely empty. At that moment, Tommy finally decides his son might have a good point. They immediately decide it's time to get the hell out. Unfortunately, the exit is blocked by a massive fallen tree. They're trapped. Austin tries calling for help but discovers he has no signal. They run into the office, lock themselves inside, and use the landline. Tommy calls the sheriff, but the connection is so distorted that the sheriff can't understand a single word before the call suddenly cuts off. Then they hear it. A bell ringing somewhere in the darkness. Not exactly the sound you want to hear in a morgue. Austin carefully peeks through the crack in the door. One of the corpses suddenly begins violently slamming against it. The father and son barely manage to barricade the entrance before it bursts open. Eventually, the banging stops. Austin becomes convinced that Jane is responsible because everything started after they began examining her. Tommy refuses to believe it. To him, she's still just a dead body. Bro. He heads into the bathroom to clean the deep cut on his wrist. While washing the wound, he hears movement behind the shower curtain. Austin also notices a shadow. Tommy pulls the curtain open. Nothing. Then an invisible force suddenly grabs him and violently slams the bathroom door shut. The unseen force repeatedly throws Tommy around the room. During the attack, he sees the vision of a charred body with gray eyes. Austin finally manages to force the door open and rescues his father. Shaken, Tommy admits what he saw. For the first time, Albert Einstein here believes Jane is somehow responsible. The two return to the autopsy room. What they discover is even worse. All of Jane's organs they removed earlier have already decomposed. It's as if her body had been preserving them the entire time. Believing she's the source of everything, they decide to cremate her. But before they can move her, the crematorium door suddenly slams shut and locks by itself. Austin desperately smashes the door until he creates a hole. When he looks through it, another corpse is standing on the other side. At this point, he's completely done with everyone's paranormal nonsense. Austin pours fuel all over Jane's body. Tommy lights the match. The flames engulf her. But Jane's body doesn't burn at all. Instead, the fire spreads through the room, destroying their camera, every photograph, and all the evidence they've collected. Tommy quickly grabs a fire extinguisher and puts out the flames. When the smoke clears, both men stare in disbelief. Jane's body is still completely untouched. Realizing they can't destroy Jane, Tommy and Austin decide that healthiest life choice is running away. They rush toward the elevator. Just as they're about to reach it, the elevator doors suddenly close by themselves. Of course they do. Things immediately get worse when one of the corpses starts walking toward them. Luckily, the elevator doors finally open and they jump inside. Just as the doors are about to close, the corpse reaches them. Tommy doesn't hesitate. He swings an axe straight into its head, but instead of silence, they suddenly hear a woman crying. Austin looks closer. His heart instantly sinks. It's Emma. She had come back for their movie date. That's one way of breaking up. Austin completely breaks down as the elevator finally starts moving. Tommy pulls his devastated son inside. Then, because this movie hates happiness, the elevator suddenly stops again. Now they're trapped. Both men blame themselves for Emma's death. Meanwhile, the cremator suddenly switches on by itself. As they sit there, Tommy wonders why Jane hasn't killed them yet. Austin comes up with a theory. Maybe she doesn't want them dead. Maybe she wants them to suffer. Every time they cut into her body, something supernatural happened, almost as if she was trying to stop them from discovering the truth. At the same time, the cremator begins overheating, filling the entire morgue with smoke. Austin suggests they return to the autopsy room. Maybe figuring out her real cause of death is the only way to stop her. With no better options, they head back. Tommy gently covers Emma's body with a blanket before they push through the smoke-filled hallway. Suddenly, an invisible force attacks Tommy. Austin can only hear screaming and slicing sounds. Thankfully, he manages to pull his father away, and together they make it back into the autopsy room. There's only one stage left. The brain. Tommy carefully begins dissecting Jane's brain and removes a small piece of tissue. Under the microscope, both men freeze. Every single brain cell is still active, which can only mean that Jane is somehow still alive. Yeah, science packed its bags and left. Austin studies the symbols on the burial shroud again. This time he recognizes a Bible verse, Leviticus 20:27. He also deciphers the Roman numerals, 1693. Tommy reads the verse aloud. Any man or woman who consults the spirits of the dead shall be put to death. The horrifying truth finally starts coming together. Jane isn't from modern times. She's from 17th century northeastern New England, right during the Salem witch trials. Back then, countless innocent women were falsely accused of being witches and executed. Tommy points out that witches were never real. Those women were innocent victims. Most were hanged or burned alive. But Jane suffered something much worse. Austin believes they may have tried killing her normally first. When that didn't work, they tortured her in increasingly horrific ways. Then Tommy comes up with a terrifying theory. Maybe all that torture accidentally created the very thing they feared. Maybe they turned an innocent girl into an actual witch. He believes Jane felt every cut they made during the autopsy. Now she's making them experience the exact same pain. Tommy reveals that the injury on his ribs is now covered with the same ritual symbols carved into Jane's body. He realizes she's already begun taking her revenge. Then everything suddenly goes silent. Accepting there's no way to stop her, Tommy speaks directly to Jane. He tells her he won't fight anymore. He only begs her to spare Austin. Moments later, the banging outside suddenly stops. Then Tommy screams in agony. His wrists begin snapping. His ankles fracture. Every bone starts breaking from the inside. At the exact same time, Jane's body begins healing itself. Her skin repairs. Her injuries disappear. Her eyes slowly return to normal. Meanwhile, Tommy's eyes turn completely gray. The pain becomes unbearable. Knowing he can't survive, Tommy begs Austin to end his suffering. Austin is completely shattered, but with tears in his eyes, he finally does it. He stabs his own father. Tommy dies almost instantly. Austin is left completely broken. Then the lights suddenly turn back on. Everything becomes strangely quiet. The radio crackles to life. Austin hears the sheriff calling from outside. He rushes toward the front door. The sheriff says they're cutting away the fallen tree and tells Austin to unlock the door from inside. Austin says he can't. Then the sheriff suddenly begins singing, "Open up your heart and let the sunshine in." Austin realizes the horrifying truth. It's not the sheriff. It's another hallucination created by Jane. There was never any rescue. Then suddenly, the next morning, police arrive at the morgue to investigate another horrific crime scene. This is completely confused. Just like the house at the beginning of the movie, there are no signs of forced entry. History has repeated itself. A radio announcement casually mentions that it's now the 4th straight day of sunshine, which means the violent storm Tommy and Austin experienced never happened. It was all an illusion. Even stranger, Jane's lying exactly where it was, perfectly intact. It's as if no autopsy was ever performed. One officer offers to transport Jane to another morgue. The sheriff immediately tells him to send her to another county instead. Smart move. In the final scene, an officer transports Jane's body inside a van. He turns on the radio. The same haunting song begins playing once again. "Open up your heart and let the sunshine in." Then, in the back of the van, Jane's toe slowly twitches. A distant bell rings, and the movie ends by reminding us that the nightmare isn't over. It's only just beginning. That's all, folks. If you stayed till the end, why don't you consider bringing that sexy thumb and pressing it against the subscribe button?